Ariadne, daughter of King Minos of Crete, wandered the winding halls of the palace with a restless heart. The grandeur of Knossos surrounded her, walls adorned with frescoes of dancing dolphins, golden mosaics that caught the light, and corridors echoing with whispered histories, but none of it stirred the joy she longed for. She had always been a dreamer, a girl who looked beyond the palace walls to the sea and the stars. Yet her life was bound by duty, by expectations, and by a secret sorrow she could not voice. For weeks, the tale of Theseus, the prince of Athens, had occupied her thoughts. He had come to Crete as a young hero, daring to face the labyrinth that imprisoned the Minotaur. Ariadne had watched him, unseen, as he confronted the beast with courage and fear intertwined. There had been something about him, something that drew her beyond fear, beyond reason. When he emerged victorious, the island buzzed with whispers of his triumph. But amidst the praise and celebration, Ariadne felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. She had helped him secretly, giving him the golden thread that allowed him to navigate the labyrinth. In doing so, she had tied her fate to his. The night before Theseus was to leave Crete, Ariadne found herself unable to sleep. She walked along the edge of the palace terrace, the sea stretching endlessly before her, its waves reflecting the moon like molten silver. Her fingers traced the railing absent-mindedly as she whispered the name of the man who had captured her thoughts. Theseus. The sound of the name alone made her heart ache with a longing she could neither explain nor deny. But fate is a river that flows beyond the control of any mortal. As dawn approached, Ariadne made a choice she would later remember with both clarity and sorrow. She left the palace quietly, walking to the shore where the ship awaited. Her heart raced with hope, fear, and a strange thrill of independence. Theseus would take her with him, she decided. Together, they would escape the confines of Crete, and perhaps she would finally find a life not dictated by her father's will. The journey by sea was quiet at first, filled with anticipation and soft conversation. Ariadne's laughter, rare and fragile, floated over the waves, blending with the wind. Theseus admired her courage and grace, though he sensed a hidden sadness beneath her smiles. They spoke of dreams, of distant lands, and of freedom from the weight of destiny. Ariadne felt for the first time that she was more than a princess, more than a pawn in the struggles of kings and heroes. She was simply herself, alive, daring, and fragile in her beauty. Ariadne awoke to the gentle touch of the sea breeze on her face. The morning sun glimmered over Naxos, painting the island in shades of gold and rose. She had not expected to awaken on this unfamiliar shore, yet a sense of serenity enveloped her. Perhaps, she thought, fate had led her here for a reason. Dionysus was there, waiting, seated on a fallen log near the shoreline, playing a flute that sang a melody of both melancholy and joy. The music seemed to reach into her soul, unraveling the tight threads of fear and doubt that had bound her since childhood. She watched him, hesitant yet curious, sensing that there was more to this god than power or mischief. There was a depth, a tenderness, and a longing in his eyes that mirrored her own. "You've been awake long," Dionysus said without looking up. "I could feel your thoughts drifting across the water." Ariadne stepped closer, her bare feet brushing the cool sand. "And what do you see when you look at me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I see a heart that seeks freedom," Dionysus replied, setting down the flute. "A heart that has known sorrow and courage, and a soul that is not afraid to dream." He gestured to the waves. "The world is vast, Ariadne. There are lands beyond your imagination, adventures beyond your fears. I can take you there, if you will follow me." She hesitated. The idea of leaving everything she had known, her family, her homeland, the faint memory of Theseus, was daunting. And yet she could feel the pull in her chest, a magnetic force that made her feel alive in ways the palace walls never had. She began, her voice trembling, "I don't know what awaits me." "That is the beauty of it," Dionysus said softly. "Life is not meant to be certain. It is meant to be lived and to feel and to love." Their eyes met, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Neither had the answers, yet both recognized the truth of connection, the inevitability of hearts drawn together. Dionysus extended his hand, a gesture of trust, invitation, and promise. Ariadne, after a heartbeat of hesitation, placed her hand in his. The warmth that flowed between them was immediate and profound, as if the threads of fate themselves had tied them together. Days passed in a blur of joy and discovery. Dionysus introduced Ariadne to the wonders of the island, groves of wild grapes, forests alive with songbirds, and hidden springs whose waters reflected the sky like liquid mirrors. He taught her the magic of the vine, of dance and song, and she laughed freely in ways she had never dared before. Every moment with him felt like a dream, a life unfolding in colors brighter than any fresco in Knossos. And yet in the quiet hours, when the sun dipped low and the shadows lengthened, Ariadne felt the ache of memory. Thoughts of Theseus, of the life she had abandoned, lingered like fate ghosts. Dionysus noticed, of course, not in a questioning or judgmental way, but with a patience and understanding that made her ache and ache again for the comfort of honesty. "You carry your past like a cloak," he said one evening as they sat beneath a sky spilling stars. "Do not fear it, Ariadne. It is part of who you are, and it has led you to me." Ariadne leaned against him, feeling the strength and warmth of his presence. "I do not regret meeting you, but sometimes I feel the weight of what I left behind." "And yet you came to me," Dionysus replied, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. "You chose to live, to love, to feel. That is courage, Ariadne, and that courage will guide us through everything ahead." In those moments, she began to understand that love was not simply desire or passion. It was a shared life, a bond that offered comfort in sorrow, joy in discovery, and strength in fear. And as she rested against the God who had entered her life like a gentle storm, she allowed herself to hope that perhaps this time her heart would find a home it would never have to leave. The weeks on Naxos flowed like the gentle tide, serene on the surface, yet carrying unseen currents beneath. Ariadne and Dionysus had grown inseparable. Their days were filled with laughter, music, and wandering through the island's hidden groves. Yet even in the warmth of their companionship, shadows of longing lingered. Ariadne often found herself staring out at the horizon, where the endless sea met the sky. Thoughts of Theseus, his courage, his promise, and the life she had glimpsed with him would drift unbidden into her mind. She did not speak of him to Dionysus, fearing it might betray her devotion. Yet the memory gnawed at her heart, a subtle ache that love alone could not erase. Dionysus, perceptive and patient, noticed her moments of quiet melancholy. He never pressed, never questioned, but in his own way, he shared the burden of her unspoken sorrow. Sometimes in the twilight, he would take her hand and guide her into the groves of wild grapes, where the air smelled sweet and the wind carried the soft hum of the earth. There, amid nature's beauty, he would remind her that love was not possession, nor was it control. It was presence, understanding, and shared strength. "You fear the past," Dionysus said one evening, his voice barely audible over the whispering leaves. "But the past is only a shadow. It cannot harm you unless you allow it to." Ariadne turned to him, her eyes reflecting both longing and confusion. "And what if the shadow is part of me?" she asked. "What if the life I left behind is calling me still?" He smiled, gentle and knowing. "Then we acknowledge it, and we do not let it define the life we are building now. Love is not about forgetting. It is about choosing, every day, to remain together despite all else." His words warmed her, yet the ache persisted. Ariadne had always carried a deep longing in her heart, not only for love, but for freedom, for the chance to choose her own path. She had found that path with Dionysus, yet she could not silence the memory of what she had left behind. One morning, the wind carried a message across the waves. Ships appeared on the horizon, bearing travelers from distant lands. Ariadne's heart leapt at the sight of a familiar sail, only for it to settle in her chest like a stone. She recognized Theseus, standing tall and brave, yet the distance between them felt insurmountable. Dionysus noticed her change in demeanor immediately. "He is from your past," he said, not accusing, only observing. Ariadne nodded, her throat tight with emotion. When Theseus finally set foot on Naxos, Ariadne's heart trembled. They spoke with careful words, the kind that dance around truths too heavy to voice. He spoke of his journeys, of battles fought and victories won, and of the life he had imagined with her by his side. Ariadne listened, her heart torn between gratitude, longing, and love. That night, alone with Dionysus, beneath a sky ablaze with stars, Ariadne felt the depth of her emotions. "I do not wish to forget him," she whispered, voice trembling, "but I also cannot turn from you." Dionysus held her close, his own heart quiet with understanding. "You do not have to choose between memory and love, Ariadne. The heart is vast. It can hold many truths, as long as we do not let them destroy what we have here." In that embrace, Ariadne realized that love was not always simple. It carried longing, heartache, and shadows of the past, yet it also offered strength, comfort, and the courage to face the unknown. Time on Naxos flowed into a rhythm of shared days and quiet nights. Dionysus and Ariadne had learned to navigate the tides of their emotions, the pull of memory, the ache of longing, and the joy of newfound love. And in the process, Ariadne discovered that the heart could expand, carrying not only love, but forgiveness, understanding, and the resilience of spirit. One morning, the sun rose golden and still over the sea. Ariadne stood on the shore, her hair catching the light, watching as waves lapped at the sand. Dionysus approached, carrying 2 goblets of wine pressed from the island's wild grapes. He offered one to her, his eyes alight with warmth and gentle amusement. "To love," he said simply, "in all its forms, past, present, and future." Ariadne lifted her goblet to his, and their eyes met. She felt the truth of his words in every beat of her heart. Love was not possession. It was a choice. It was patience, understanding, and the willingness to carry one another's burdens. She drank, feeling the sweetness of the wine and the fullness of her heart. "Dionysus," she said softly, "I have known fear and sorrow, longing and heartbreak, but with you,
I have found courage and joy. And I with you, he replied, taking her hand. You are no longer a shadow of the past, Ariadne. You are the life we build together. Together, they wandered through the island's hidden groves, the sun painting the leaves in gold and green. The music of nature blended with the gentle hum of their laughter. Ariadne realized that she had finally arrived at a place of belonging, not because the past had vanished, but because she had embraced it, and in doing so, had chosen love fully and bravely. Years would come and go, and the story of Ariadne and Dionysus would become legend. But for those golden days on Naxos, there was only the quiet joy of hearts intertwined. No shadow of fear, no memory of sorrow could undo the bond they had forged. Ariadne stood with Dionysus beneath the canopy of stars, the island silent except for the soft whisper of the waves. She felt the fullness of her life, the depth of her love, and the gentle peace that comes from knowing one has found a true companion. Dionysus wrapped his arms around her, and in that embrace, the world felt complete, balanced, and eternal. And so, Ariadne and Dionysus lived, a story of love tempered by longing, deepened by understanding, and sustained by the quiet courage of two hearts choosing each other every day in a world that is ever-changing, yet eternal in its capacity for wonder. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share, and subscribe for more real-life love and emotional stories. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. P.S.